Live in Nashville, Tennessee. You are listening to the Nashville Daily Podcast. Nashville's #1 daily podcast. Brought to you by Think Nashville. Think Nashville. Think Brad. Think Brad. It's Nashville Daily Podcast.
Good morning, Nashville, and welcome to the Nashville Daily Podcast. I am the co-host, Stuart Deming. Today's episode is brought to you by Brad Reynolds. If you're looking for real estate in the Middle Tennessee market, make sure to contact him at thinkbrad.com, 615-856-3270. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Metro Council and how they just voted yes for Nissan Stadium. This is the first of 3 yeses. They have 3 votes that they have to vote through. Aaron, before we get to that, how are you doing this morning?
I need more caffeine, but I am doing great.
You told me this morning you made a pot of coffee at 8 p.m. last night. And I'm like, I do not understand.
I did. I made a pot of coffee at 8 p.m. It was like one of those days or one of those, I guess, evenings where I was like, okay, I know I need to spend like a couple hours on the computer. And so I was like, either I'm going to fall asleep on the computer or I'm going to make a pot of coffee and I'm going to be just fine. So I was just fine. Now I'm not. So that's the price of getting older.
You're regretting it. Yeah.
But it was Blessed Day coffee and it was very good. So
yeah, that's one of our sponsors.
Yeah, no regrets. Yeah. No regrets there.
I'm drinking out of the mug consistently.
There you go.
Blessed Day coffee.
But yeah, there's going to be today's a really, really cool episode because rarely do we get to talk about the political scene, the music scene, and the business scene all in one day. But thanks to our guest, Jamie Kent, we can. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, so good to be back.
Jamie, this is your 3rd or 4th time coming on the show.
Yep.
The first time we had you on the show was like episode, I don't even know, 300 and something. And we recorded outside of Just Love Coffee on Demumbrian Street.
That's right.
And that was like in the middle of...
Was this pre or post-COVID?
Yeah, it was
post.
Might have been in the middle of...
Because you and I met at the racetrack.
Yes.
That's where we met.
Oh, that's right. So it was post-COVID, yeah.
Because of Dr. Caldwell.
Yep.
And yeah, so it had to be... It was sometime.
2020, we'll say.
Yeah. Then you came on the show again, and you were one of the first ones in this studio. And it was a way different experience, way different cameras, and now you're here again.
Did we have cameras that time?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I couldn't even remember.
Yeah.
That was like probably you would have been one of the first episodes then to have cameras.
I've watched the great ascent of the Nashville Daily Podcast over the last 3 years, and I'm so proud of you guys.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Now you have coffee sponsors and realtor sponsors.
Well, let's talk about our other sponsors.
Yeah.
Talk about our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Bowtie Barber Club. If you're looking for a haircut in the Donaldson community, make sure to head to bowtiebarberclub.com. That's our other sponsor.
Oh, do they trim your beard?
Yeah. They're the only ones I trust in town with my beard. So just a quick side topic real quick. My beard is about to celebrate its beard anniversary.
10 years, right?
10 years on November 1st of this year.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think about.
Uh-huh.
Typically on my beard anniversary, I go and I get the works. Like I get cleaned up, look good. And on my 5th year beard anniversary, I went to a local place here in town, and they shaved up instead of down on my beard. And it wrecked it. It was so bad. So bowtiebarberclub.com, they're the only people I trust. Jamie, you are a entrepreneur. You are... Would you technically consider yourself a lobbyist at some point?
Yeah.
A lobbyist.
Yeah.
And an artist.
Yep.
How do you wear all of these multiple hats? And by the way, your hat game is always so strong.
Yes, I'm a fan of wearing lots of hats, both physically and metaphorically. I don't know. I just I love to stay busy. I love to learn. I love to help my community in whatever ways I can, and I always have followed the energy wherever it leads. And over the last few years, it's led from being a full-time touring artist to lobbying on something that I was really passionate about, to launching my own business, and they all sort of create this pretty cool ecosystem to what I do, and they benefit each other and supplement each other, and I think help each other to towards moving forward to what I do, I guess.
Before we get into the lobbying thing that you did, which was really fascinating, how that progressed through Nashville and then went to the state level. What are your thoughts on the brand new Titan Stadium?
Well, I'm always looking and thinking about things that are happening on a metro or state level through the lens of how does this impact our creative community? Because I'm a big advocate for that, and I feel like our creative community is kind of getting left behind right now in this explosive economic development that's happening here, even though we're the cause of a lot of this explosive economic development. So that is sort of this where I think we're at this creative crisis that we have to address. And so as I look at the Titan Stadium deal, there's people that are a lot smarter than me with more expertise on the nuances of stadium deals in general that have plenty of great arguments on both sides. But in terms of just an economic development deal, I like that this takes the burden off of us local taxpayers and to foot the bill of all the improvements that are going to have to happen to this stadium, because that's money that from our general fund in Metro that could go to things like the creative community and increasing the budget to Metro Arts or creating this new music, film, and TV commission. So there's a lot of things that need funding.
Which is really interesting because we just had Jeff Syracuse on.
Yep.
I want to have you and Jeff Syracuse on another show together to talk about that.
Let's do it. Well, like I said,
there's a lot of controversy behind this.
Oh, no doubt.
Film and Entertainment Commission.
Well, and in previous talks that we've had off air, you said Nashville's investment through the Arts Foundation is probably smaller compared to a lot of other cities out there.
Yeah, it's crazy once you get into the numbers of it. I think. The last I read, the Nashville's civic investment in the arts is like $4.50 per capita when you compare it to like $20 per capita in Austin and $30 in Charlotte, and places that you're like, whoa, in the fact that we don't have a music commission right now, I haven't had one for 15 years or so, and yet we are Music City USA, and all of these other small cities have them, and they're supporting it. So it's just it's a problem, but it's also a great opportunity for us to create a solution to really support our community that needs it right now. And I think the pandemic kind of exposed the issue really and shone that spotlight on it.
One of the things that we talked about just before the show, and I think this is the right time to talk about it, is this new series that you're doing with the Noel Hotel, and all of the people that are involved in this. Seems like a nice little, I don't want to say coalition, but, a nice little group of people who can come together and talk about the issues from a lot of different standpoints. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So on April 26th, I'm going to be hosting a dinner at the restaurant in Noel for their Innovators series. And the theme of the night is economic development and how artists can come together to create better communities. And I've got a few co-hosts that are going to be helping drive conversations at different tables. I got Jill Palm from the Arts and Business Council, Jeff Syracuse is one, and then Mike Kopp, who is Ben Folds' manager and an amazing expert in economic development, former deputy secretary, I believe, for the state of Tennessee in economic development. So we all come at it from different perspectives on how we can bring artists together, whether it's from a legislative standpoint, from a grassroots standpoint, from a lobbying standpoint, or just from a funding standpoint. And I think that these are conversations that really need to happen. And I really encourage folks to come to this dinner and be a part of these conversations, because I think that's going to take like a think tank of people invested in this and care about this to create a lot of different solutions to help support our community.
Is that going to be like the feel of a singer-songwriter round, but with a little bit of a little bit different twist to it?
That's right, exactly.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so like instead of a writer's round, it's an idea round, maybe.
Idea round. You need a trademark right now.
You have to play and come up with your ideas. You can only pitch your ideas while playing guitar or piano.
Yes, exactly.
Or a saxophone.
Yeah,
you have to do the pitch with the saxophone. So, Jamie, you initially moved here. You've been in Nashville for over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And you moved here to pursue music.
Yep.
And you're from the Northeast.
Yep.
And you did that for a while, and then over the last few years, you became the lobbyist. And Jamie Ken, the lobbyist. That should be on your business card. So walk us through that journey and what caused you to lobby with the city of Nashville and then to the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, so, I think the pandemic had all sorts of silver linings to it, and this was one of them for me, where, I was touring 150 days a year prior to it, and it sort of put a pause on that and made me evaluate things and evaluate how I want to utilize my voice as an artist from the sidelines. And I thought, well, I'd like to get involved in something I'm passionate about. And the pandemic began, and a group of us came together to produce this telethon for Music Cares, and we were just like, we got to do something. And then through that, I got connected to this national organization called Smoke Free Music Cities, and they were advocating to create smoke-free workplaces for musicians in other cities, and they had done great work in Austin and New Orleans and Atlanta, and I had no idea about what they were doing, but I've battled asthma since I was a kid, and playing in these smoke-filled venues was always a nightmare for me. I'd lose my voice, I'd have to cancel the show the next day, my merch would stink, and so it was sort of this, the whole world came together, and I was like, whoa, this is inspiring. Why don't we do this here in Nashville? And so we started this coalition called Musicians for a Smoke-Free Nashville, and it just snowballed. And we went from them, myself, the Department of Health, a bunch of musicians, and pretty soon we had like 80 members in the course of like 6 months. We helped Nissan Stadium go smoke free. But in that process, we realized that this thing called preemption exists where, and across the board on a million different things, cities don't have the ability to change certain laws because of state law. And so we realized that in order for a place like Nashville to pass a smoke-free law that covers all workplaces, including music venues and bars, a law needed to change at the state level first. And I was like, well, who else is going to do it? I better learn. And so that's when I sort of put on that lobbying cap, learned the ins and outs of it, failed a bunch, and then learned some more. And our momentum kept building and the coalition kept building. And I kind of learned the political landscape and how you get things done. And we created this piece of legislation that repealed this part of preemption and gave control back to cities like Nashville and Memphis and Knoxville. And we got bipartisan support, and it was this kind of beautiful thing that learned in that it kind of came full circle back to Nashville, to which last week on March 1st, effective became smoke-free in 50-plus bars and venues because Jeff Syracuse introduced an ordinance last fall, which passed because we passed the state law that enabled it. So it's this wildly complex, but really cool. And I don't know, I never thought that I would go from artist to lobbyist and policy nerd, but it happened over the course of the last 2 years, and I want to utilize that to help the creative community in as many ways as I can because of it.
Well, what's the biggest thing you learned from going through that journey?
I think that there is a specific way laws are passed and progress is made in that way that I think oftentimes our creative community comes to know about issues kind of late in the game and protests things kind of late in the game and gets angry, but then nothing changes because we're too late to it. We're protesting it when it's going to the governor's desk to sign, and at that point, it's long gone.
The boat is gone.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to get involved in something, it has to be when the bill is in committee a month and a half beforehand and can be amended.
Or the bill is being introduced.
Right. Or you be involved in drafting the language to introduce it. Because the thing that I learned that, we have a Republican supermajority in the state, and we have a very Democratic city council, which are, as everybody knows, are at odds all the time.
Well, so just speaking on that, the House of the state of Tennessee, I think it was last night or Monday night, passed that they're going to reduce the size of Metro Council.
Right.
So now it's going to Senate and then potentially Governor Billsley's desk.
Yep.
Right. Well, and so there are so many things that they are going to disagree on and fight about. But the thing I learned that brings almost everyone together is music.
And food.
And food.
Yeah.
That's true. And we might say sports too, but people still disagree on sports a lot.
The things that we found out with producing our content: food, music, and adventure.
Yeah.
Those are some of the three things that connect
together.
everybody.
Yeah. And so to me, there's an opportunity to continue to bring people together around music and the creative community and the creative working class, because I saw it firsthand. I saw, there was this big need for a presence at the Capitol and in the city council, where they're like, oh yeah, we don't hear from the creative community that much. They don't get engaged that much.
When you have sessions, everyone is working.
Right. Well, and it's really complicated, and it's really
all the creatives are busting their butts on the ground level.
Yep.
Trying to make their dollars, and so some of the last things on their mind is I need to go to the Capitol and talk about what I need.
Right. What the creatives need are people that have a pulse on what's happening and can let them know early on how to get involved and specifically what to do to get involved. Because, tweets and Instagram posts are certainly helpful at certain times, but
they can only go so far.
Right, but letters to council and showing up to meetings, those are the things, a phone call. Like, I've seen more things get done from a few phone calls than can get done by 100 social media posts.
Yeah, like I've seen, even just in a recent version of this, is people in South Nashville, probably the same people who were against the stadium for the soccer stadium. They're complaining now, like, oh, our voices aren't being heard for the new Nissan stadium. It's like, y'all didn't show up to any meetings. And so there were like 36 meetings that were offered to Nashvillians during this time to do that. But, if you don't, you're exactly right. If you don't attend, if there's not some representation from who you're trying to the community that you're trying to speak for, it's going to move on without you.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I'm always very solution oriented, for better or worse. But, I think it's easier sometimes to try to kill a bill or kill something that's happening than it is to do the work to create the alternative, to say this is what we really want. And I think that's what I'm trying to formulate right now for our creative community. Yeah. Because there's so much money being spent on so many things that aren't supporting the creative community. So, how do we create something that it can? Because right now that thing doesn't exist, so no money goes there, right?
Right. And so is the, things like, would certain other things that are not being budgeted for as much as we want to, like public transportation, could that help that community?
Affordable housing, things like that,
especially the ones that are artist focused,
like the Ryman Lofts.
So the Ryman Lofts, right? That's the shining example and the only one that, and it has an 8-year wait list.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I applied to live in Ryman Lofts 75.
Well, and so there's some
75 years ago.
75 years.
Right. There's some cool solutions that are popping up. Like there's a new nonprofit that just launched called Nashville Industry Fund, and they are creating grants for the creative community for down payment assistance, so that people can try to buy houses. Because when I moved here 10 years ago, you could afford to buy a house as a middle class artist. You can't right now.
No.
The median income doubled over the last 2 years to buy a house here, right? So we need to address that. I know Jeff Syracuse has been a big proponent of a public-private partnership for the future as a solution to drive funding towards things like buying historic venues or affordable housing, down payment assistance, grants, things like that, because it really needs to be funded. And you look at cities like Austin that are doing it, and they're putting tens of millions of dollars every year into these funds.
Interesting.
And that's what we need to be doing in order to we can survey, we can assess problems, but we need to fund them. And that's the thing that will hopefully be addressed over the next year or two.
Speaking of Austin, you're going to be there next week.
Yep.
For South by Southwest.
Yep.
And you started a really cool thing, and I can't remember what you called it, but it's basically like a live singer-songwriter session on a boat.
Yeah, so it's called the New Nashville Riverboat Roadshow.
That's a long name.
I know. and really what it was, I've been such a huge just fan of the music coming out of Nashville that isn't just the country music that everyone knows. The rock, the R&B, the soul, the folk. There's just so much good stuff, and I just have had the ability to produce shows, and I've done it over the years as an artist myself. And I thought, why can't we create a stage of rising Nashville artists at other festivals, because they're going to be there already. So let's bring them together so people can really see what's happening. Yep. And we did this at South by Southwest with our partners at Bose. Like 5 years ago, we started it, and it just exploded. We got like 10,000 RSVPs for 100 spots on this boat.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
And we've expanded.
That's better than the Ryman Loft.
Maybe it's on an 8-year wait.
Yeah, it's not an 8-year wait list. It's more like a 2-hour. But yeah, this year we're expanding. We're going from 1 day with 2 boats to 2 days with 5 cruises and over 20 Nashville artists.
Wow.
So that'll be next week.
Logistically, that sounds like a mess to organize.
It's wild, but we've got a great team in place doing it. Yeah. We've got great artists, great sound. It's going to be exhausting and a whole lot of fun.
Now, are those tickets for like people that are paying for South by Southwest? Do they get access to the boats, or do they have to buy their own?
So here's the deal. It's entirely free.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So it's free. You have to RSVP, and then you have to get there early.
Yeah.
So normally we've got a pretty giant line of people get on, because also they eat and drink for free.
Whoa.
So we're like, we're just going to create this magical experience.
Wow.
Because originally people were like, you can't get people at South by Southwest to go into us one place for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Everyone wants to bounce around to the cool thing. I'm like, well, what if it's on a boat? We get free beer and free tacos. I mean, I want to be on that.
Yep.
And
That
we
sounds like
found
a
out.
great
nice
trip.
captive audience.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's a cool little festival within a festival, because the top deck of the boat has bands, and then when they change over, we have acoustic music on the lower deck. Yeah, at some point, I really want to do it here in Nashville. We just got to get the right boat size. So.
Let's do this on a General Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
It would be. That's the dream. It's a little expensive, but
If not, there's some boats I'm thinking of in Hendersonville.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just get a membership with the yacht club in Nashville. Just start doing shows off of that.
Anybody out there has a boat that they would like to start doing some shows on, you know where to reach us.
There's the Nashville Boat Club.
That's what I meant.
So you could sign up for a membership. It's like a monthly membership of like $400 or $500, and you get access to all these different boats throughout Old Hickory Lake, Percy Priest. I think it's even
we can do like a houseboat show.
Oh yeah, you get all the boats that come together, and maybe one pontoon is a stage.
Go to a party cove.
the Party Cove by Long Beach.
Okay.
We're going to talk about
All
this.
right.
Okay, we're done with the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know some guys that could maybe film it too and make it pretty cool. Live podcast from the boat.
Yeah, don't tempt us. Jamie, one term that I saw on your website, you said you use the term artrepreneur. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you in the work that you've done kind of throughout your career?
I think it's always been. I actually studied entrepreneurship in college, and
Where did you go?
I went to Babson College. It's a small school in the Northeast. It's really almost entirely focused on entrepreneurship as well.
Wow.
And I was definitely kind of the fish out of water there as the musician, but I always knew I wanted to manage my own career as an artist, and that really gave me the tools
that was for that time. That was probably very different.
Yeah.
A lot of artists saw the path that they wanted to take.
Yeah, back then it was, I have some gray hairs in my beard, so it was a little while ago when I first started, but it was things like Kickstarter and Patreon. None of them existed, so you had to really get creative and think of your art as a business, and that's what I learned at school of like, okay, how can I think of this differently? And I was able to really build my career by approaching it like a small business and partnering with brands like Bose early on, and trading, my road dog show, like bring sound equipment on the road with me in exchange for their amazing marketing arm and the things that I didn't have as an independent artist, and though that helped me build. And I had to deal with Durango boots, and it was very similar, where they put a CD in every pair of boots that they sold, and like that. So we just got creative that way, and that's kind of when I started thinking of myself as a artrepreneur. And and I was lucky enough to, debut at like 16 on the Billboard charts because of that.
Have you trademarked that word?
I haven't. No, I need to. I haven't trademarked any of these things.
Have you gotten any hat deals?
Yeah. I have a sort of informal hat deal with Bailey's, which is the one I'm wearing now, where every couple of years they'll send me a few when I've got a big photo shoot. I love these Bailey's hats, to be honest, because they fit my weird shaped head.
Are they in Nashville?
They're not. I think they're actually out of Pennsylvania originally, but they are available for sale here in Nashville.
Okay.
But the thing that I love about them is they're crushable wool. So I learned very quickly, being in a band van with a non-crushable, expensive hat.
You don't have like a nice little hook to put your hat on.
Right. Oh, yeah. A guitar case ends up on it, and your $300 hat is now toast. So this hat can get crushed and bounces back, or you can even pack it in a suitcase if you need to.
Wow.
So that's
there's a new custom hat maker here in town. And when we talked to them a few weeks ago, I immediately thought of you and I said, we need to get Jamie Kent here.
I know we do.
Custom handmade leather hat.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
It's going to be a good time.
Let's unveil it here on this podcast. I'm in.
Amazing. Yeah, let's definitely set that up.
Okay.
So Jamie, with the Artrepreneur, you also have a business that you own called BAM.
Yep.
And what's the defining words of that again? Because it's BAM.
Oh, Band Ambassador Media Group.
There we are.
Yep.
I was I was sitting here thinking, I was like, I can't now remember that first word.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that really launched as an extension of my music career and building brand partnerships with folks, and then it was helping other artists broker brand deals, brokering sponsorships at music festivals, creating activations for folks that were really music centered, and then through the pandemic and my work in advocacy, we started shifting into really trying to innovate advocacy and creating really cool campaigns for folks, because I have some of the best film and graphic design folks that are just like doing music videos for Willie Nelson and like doing like really cool stuff. So then when you then create something for an advocacy campaign that looks so different from anything that's been out there, it turns heads and people go, oh, whoa, wait a minute. What is this? And we learned that like we can really take this marketing approach rooted in music and apply it to causes to help drive awareness for people in really unique and fun ways through music. Because, we really found that so many creatives want to have their voice. The whole shut up and sing thing has really gotten old for people, and they want to stand up and shout and about something that they believe in. And I feel like we can kind of help them structure that message in a way that's most productive and can actually get things done and not just yell out into an echo chamber of people that just agree with you.
One of the things that I think during the pandemic for artists is that a lot of artists took a lot of agency over their own music. One, because there was limited things to do, and so a lot of artists just got online and started making music. A lot of people who weren't artists got online and started making music. A lot of people just built a brand and then added music to it after they got big. What are some of the things that you've seen that have stood out to you during this pandemic time of artists, the change in either artist development or artists, the change from label to independent? What are some of the trends that you've seen that have really stood out to you during the past few years?
Yeah, it's interesting. From an artist perspective, I think that, there's been so many middlemen taking cuts in various ways that I think it's made it that an artist has to tour like to an exhausting level that detriments their health in order to make enough money to make it worthwhile, right? So you've seen, like you said, a lot of artists take that control back. I think that I've noticed on the venue side, interestingly, a lot of venues have been shifting to a nonprofit model.
Interesting.
And especially on the small to mid-sized venue, because
It makes sense.
yeah, because then they can offer workshops during the day. They suddenly become eligible for grant funding, and because the margins are so slim that when you have something like a pandemic or whatever that could happen that can just rattle the system, there's no room for error and people shut down. So this kind of gives them a buffer, and I think it's a really cool and interesting model that I think is going to create sustainability in that level of venue that kind of helps artists on the rise.
Are you working with Jeff Syracuse on the venue side of things too?
I'm helping advise best I can. Okay. I know there's still a lot to be done there, and he's got some big dreams, and I can't wait to help him realize those in any way. I've worked a bunch with the Music Venue Alliance, Nashville too. They're doing some great things in this space. For me, I want to advocate for both the venues and the creatives that play in them. So like trying to create whatever model we do create can fund both of those things, I think is going to be really important. And I think it can really easily.
Yeah. So after the South by Southwest experiences that you've built and you're coming back, do you think your sole focus is going to be on creating that artist community and developing a relationship with that community between the artists and the decision makers of the city and state? Is that going to be kind of your focus after South by Southwest?
Yeah, it's a big part of my focus. I mean, it's honestly a big part of my passion. I think that's really where it like everything else I do is like, there's a million things that I've got going on all the times, but this is like where my heart is. And it's, I think that one of the biggest needs that our community has, like we have mayoral and council elections coming up, and I want to know where everybody stands on these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that there's a real big opportunity to kind of really get this done and do it right. And so, yeah, I think that that's a giant part of my priority here. And I'm also, I still am a huge passionate believer in creating smoke-free workplaces for my fellow artists too, and we've done it in Nashville, and we've gotten so many thank yous from artists and just even patrons that have gone and been like, oh my God, finally. And I'd love to help empower other artists in other cities in Tennessee to do the same thing, because it's still an issue in Memphis and in Knoxville. And those obviously aren't where I live, but if I can lend our experience to them in any way and help empower them, I think that's the key, is just wanting to empower our creative community for whatever you are passionate about, to direct that in a way that can be impactful. For me, it was that the venues and smoke-free environments is like one of my personal passions, and I directed that in that way. And now I want to help folks do that with whatever they're passionate, because there's a lot of issues that folks are passionate about. And hopefully I've developed some skills that can be passed on. Yeah, because
I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, well, dang, that's an issue that is, an issue that can only be solved with an act of signing of a pen with a government entity, and they're like, that's too much work for me to even thinking about getting involved in. Or do you see that is a big roadblock? A lot of people, and just kind of an intimidation factor, maybe. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that creating coalitions is a great way to provide resources to folks and like playbooks to folks on, hey, if you want to get involved, here's the 3 steps to do this. And then here's another group of folks that want to do it, so that our power combined will be greater. I think our smoke-free coalition can help provide those resources to people in other cities for that specific issue, right? But I think that this a coalition needs to exist on just advocating for the creative working class here in Nashville. It is a burly undertaking, so if anyone else is out there and wants to help me on that, it's more than one person can do, because it is a huge undertaking. But I think that we need a seat at the table, and that's the only way it's really going to happen, is making some noise and doing it respectfully, but so that when these economic development deals happen, we say, okay, this is great. You're coming here for the creative class. What are you going to do to benefit the creative class now? Imagine with this, they should have done with the new, it's too late to do anything now, but with the new city council, they should have had one, they have their regular district members, their community at large members.
Then they should have creative.
They should have creative community representative as a council member.
And
amazing.
I think ultimately that's what the mayor's office is trying to do by creating the Office of Music, Film, and Entertainment. I think in the first couple of years, that person is probably just going to have to be surveying, creating a budget on how many more people they're going to need to hire, because that's more than one person can do.
Right.
But I think that's the goal, right, is to have a music office, and I know there's other folks that want to be advocating within film and TV and the arts in general, but music is our brand, and it is the reason. You look on the Chamber's website, and that's what the second line that they're advertising, this creative culture, right? So, okay, that's what's attracting people here. So now we just got to make sure that we are supporting the thing that is attracting people here, because otherwise people are going to be going to other cities. You look at the showcases during South by Southwest, during Americana Fest. You'd be surprised at how many cities are presenting showcases. And you know why they are? Because they're trying to attract the creative class to move to Asheville, to move to Bentonville, Arkansas, to move to Huntsville, Alabama, all these places that are...
and then once the artist moves there, the developers moves there.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It is a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Do you think Nashville can ever lose its branding as Music City?
Ooh, that's a good. I mean, I don't think it can lose its branding, but I think the strength of the brand is at that crisis point over the next 5 years. If it doesn't support it and find ways to support and invest in its creative class here, then if those people start leaving, the industry will always be here, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like Detroit is. Detroit's Motor City, and they'll never lose that, but they've lost their soul of the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to think about it, right? Like the industry will always be here. That engine will be rocking because it's great and it does what it does. But will Nashville remain a place that someone moves to with a dream and a guitar? And that's what I think it's at the risk of, the opportunities either aren't there or it's too expensive to risk, and I'm just going to have to be working another job the entire time, and I would spend a year here and then move back home. And I think that when I moved here, that dream was so strong and the pull was so strong, and you came here and it was this sense of community that everyone was in it. It was a competitive community. Like we're all trying to get there first, but then we're looking to turn around and lift the next person up. And I think that sentiment is shifting towards feeling left behind. And I don't think it's too late. I think we can very much right that ship. But we just have to be aware of it, and we have to invest in it, and we have to take those like bold steps forward to change that. Otherwise, if we just rely on the things that have always worked, I think that other places will start stealing from that brand.
Yep, I totally agree. Jamie, if people want to reach out to you, if they're feeling the same way, they're feeling pumped up, how can they reach out to you and email you and say, I want to be part of this in some capacity?
Awesome. I would absolutely love that. The website for my company is thebamgroup.net, and I'm just Jamie at thebamgroup.net. So hit me up on the email there. I'm on all the social media platforms too. So if that's easier, just give me a follow and shoot me a message there. And let's create this wave. Let's bring the momentum. The more people that are passionate about this and want to be involved, the more we can do. So
awesome. Jamie, thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you guys for doing what you do and providing a voice to people like me and so many others in this town. We appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the Nashville Daily Podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for listening to the Nashville Daily Podcast. If you want to learn more, head to NashvilleDailyPodcast.com.
You can also follow us on social media at explore.nash on Instagram, Nashville Daily Podcast on YouTube, and explore.nash on YouTube as well.
The Nashville Daily Podcast is an Explore LLC production, copyright 2023.